Hi, everyone. Welcome to Coasters and Community Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Johnston, and we're talking how to build a brand in the theme park community. Each week, we'll hear from influencers, writers, vloggers, journalists, as they share their journey in building a brand in this community. Today, we have special guest Marissa Potts. You may know her as Little Miss Marissa across various social media platforms, and she's on today to talk about building the Disney lifestyle part of her brand. Let's get going. So where did your interest in theme parks originate from?
So I've grown up in Florida. I was born in Miami, and I kind of slowly moved northward until I got here when I moved here for college. But I've always loved Disney, and once I got to that age, I started loving Universal as well. So I was always a big theme park girl. And I have this theory that people who struggle with mental illness are more likely to gravitate towards fantasy and any kind of anime or any kind of those worlds that take you away. And I think that was kind of for the same for me, having mental health issues growing up, I definitely found solace in characters that Disney, has. And then it got weirder as I got older because then everybody's like, oh, you're a Disney adult, but it was just something that I always loved. And I just never have grown out of it. And it's just something I still love to this day. So
Yeah, and I can relate to that. I really feel like the term Disney adult is just an unfair categorization of kind of a small snapshot that someone may have of you.
Definitely.
So how do we get from your early interest in theme parks to the brand, Little Miss Maris?
Yeah. So when I first moved here for college, that was kind of the start of the Disney Instagram. This was back in 2014. And I started posting pretty regularly back then. And it's kind of just a roller coaster ride ever since. I had always wanted a YouTube channel. In high school, I loved watching YouTubers, and I just never really pulled the plug for a long time. So I kind of started on Instagram, posting pictures I took and just fun things, and meeting people in the community and kind of growing with them. And then I kind of took a break and just posted fun things, just random things throughout my life. I was not really focused on Disney. And then I think it was 2017, I started my YouTube channel, and I did that for a long time. I still have my YouTube channel, but I'm not posting as consistently anymore. But I kind of didn't have a niche because I have so many different interests. So I started doing Disney, but also thrifting and eco-friendly stuff and just vlogs. I moved to Atlanta with my husband, and so we were just kind of doing things in Atlanta and travel vlogs and things like that. And then I kind of started to realize that I was getting a lot of views, but not a lot of subscribers. And I was trying to figure out where the disconnect was. And I think that's when it hit me that I really needed to hone in on a niche, which I don't think everybody has to do necessarily. Obviously it's up to whatever everybody wants to post about. But for me, I was just trying to figure out why I wasn't growing an audience, but I was growing in views. And then that's when I really just focused on the Disney community. I also started my TikTok, which I think was the big growth factor for me. Because yes, it's that algorithm. It's crazy. So yeah, then that was a couple years ago. That was probably 2020, around COVID time, that I started posting consistently on TikTok and then Instagram and YouTube. And it was for a while I was really, really dedicated. I was posting every single day on all those platforms, plus my podcast, which was coming out every week. And then once I got my job with Disney a couple years back, I decided to put a pause on the podcast just because I was really nervous about saying something I'm not supposed to. But then I also took a break kind of this year from posting as consistently. So now I'm just kind of going with the flow. Whenever I want to post, I post. I just kind of am doing it more for fun now rather than being super strict posting every single day.
Yeah, I see a lot of people posting just insane amounts of content, and I always wonder just how do they sustain that at a high level for a long period of time without just getting burned out.
Oh,
Um,
definitely.
So I guess irrespective of what's popular, what's trending, what is your favorite kind of content to post?
My favorite is definitely Disney style. I am like a big thrifter. I've always been throughout my life. So I think it's also there's like kind of a misconception in the Disney community that, to be in the Disney community, you have to always have the new ears that were released or the new merch that was released. And I'm a big like what's the word advocate for using things you already have in your closet in a new way, or thrifting and like trying to be more eco-conscious. And that's definitely my favorite, is like coming up with new outfits. And I already like, I think way ahead, like I'm already planning my outfits for like Halloween and Christmas just because it's so fun for me. And I feel like, when I'm 80 years old and I'm looking back, I think those are going to be the pictures and the videos that I'm most proud of, is just like ones that I really like poured my heart into and had like a creative outlet for that.
Yeah, and not that it means a whole lot, but I think that's my favorite Little Miss Maris kind of content, the more creative stuff, and that's just what I always kind of gravitate toward.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, so when I see Little Miss Maris content, how much of Marissa am I seeing? In other words, how much of your personality is in that content?
I think 100%. At least I try to be. I feel like I'm very authentic. I hope I am, at least. I hope I come across that way. I definitely, kind of had like a weird disparity when I first started YouTube, where I really wanted to be a person that was like totally authentic. I showed the bad parts and the good parts. And I haven't posted as much of the bad parts recently just because I do like want to be more of like a positive light for people when they're having bad days. But I do like it's kind of a weird what's the word, bridge of like wanting to talk about mental health issues and important issues that we have to talk about, but also being that positive light and not like bringing people down with my content. So I think that's the only part I kind of pull back on a little bit, is all of the negative stuff that happens. I try to keep it more positive, but I definitely show a little bit of that as well.
And I think that's an interesting perspective because I really feel like at this point, folks know that, what we see from our content creators on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, that, that's not necessarily live. And that's okay because, I mean, we get live 24 hours a day. And so we don't necessarily have to see that. Let's go here. Where do your content ideas typically come from?
Oh, that's tough. Honestly, like they just pop into my head randomly. Like I have a notes app on my phone where I have ideas for every park, and then I just have ideas in general. So that way, if I know, okay, I'm going to Epcot today, here's like the ideas I have. Am I going to be able to do these today while I'm there? I honestly don't usually get a lot done because I'm always hanging out and having fun in the parks.
Yeah.
So I try to get whatever I can done when I can. But they're just random, like as I'm falling asleep in the shower, they'll pop into my head. I'll give you a little like sneak peek. So like for food and wine, I'm thinking about my outfit, and I was just like thinking like, okay, what's like a popular summer food? Because last year I did charcuterie because that's like my favorite is wine and cheese.
Yeah.
So this year I was like, okay, what's just like a popular summer food? And like it hit me that it's s'mores. So like that's a little sneak peek. That's going to be like my theme. So it's just those kind of things that like,
Okay.
I take like an idea that just pops in my head and then I kind of just roll with it, So that's kind of how my mind works. My mind is just always going and never really stops. So it's a good thing and a bad thing.
I understand. So you've been doing this a while. Do you feel like you know your audience pretty well at this point?
I think so. I feel like, I don't know. I have a little bit of a different opinion than a lot of other Disney creators because I really did start my page to build a community and to like make friends, which I feel like a lot of people are more just like there to create and to grow, and which is totally fine. But like if you see my page, I follow a lot of people back, which is something that I'm proud of because I love like I don't think creating would be fun for me if I wasn't able to interact with the people who follow me and to learn about them and to be able to talk to them about things. And, my DMs are always open. So I'm always down to talk about Dreamlight Valley or Zelda. And I think that that's something that I really find special about my page is that people can get to know me, but I also get to know the people that take the time to watch my content and to like my content and comment on my content. Because if we're being honest, like, yes, my content is fun to look at, but it also takes time from people's day to take the time to comment on my stuff and to watch my stories, which is something that I'm super appreciative of because there's 100 other people that they could be looking at their content, and I want to be able to take the time to pour into them as well. So
Yeah, and I think that's a great perspective. I know for me, when I engage with people online or they engage with me, and then I turn around and create content, I feel like I'm creating content for actual people, not just creating content for just the sake of my enjoyment or for getting more views. But I feel like I'm making more of an impact.
definitely. And like, I'm definitely not perfect. There was a time, especially last year, where when I was creating every day and I was pouring so much time to it, it was frustrating when like the views didn't measure up and like, seeing other people who do similar videos and like theirs did so well and mine did so bad. And I think that's where like I'm kind of taking the step back this year because I've been like, that's not healthy to have that mindset, to always be worried about views and like to be super concerned about whose is doing better. And I think that now I'm in such a happier place, like just like posting things and being like, if it does well, it does well. If not, who cares? It's just for fun. Yeah. And like, I really like think about, and this is really morbid, but like, I think about the end of my life and like looking back and like, I just don't think, when I'm, 80 years old and I have great grandchildren that I'm going to be worried about, oh man, I didn't get 20,000 views on that reel. So that's just kind of what I'm trying to keep in mind is like, this isn't important in the scheme of things.
Yeah, I think you're all over it. I think at the end of the day, you just got to be happy with what you produce and that be enough.
Definitely.
So are you always on the lookout for new ways to present your content, new ways to keep it fresh? Or is it more of a situation where you know what you do best, and that's what you stick with?
See, that's where I have a little bit of a struggle because, I love doing like get ready with me's and vlogs, and people seem to enjoy watching them, but it gets to the point now where, I've done 50 get ready with me's and I'm like, okay, I'm using the same products. I'm doing the same makeup. Like, do people actually want to keep watching this? So even though I've been going to the parks, I haven't been filming that kind of content because I'm just like, okay, I think it's getting a little repetitive.
Yeah.
So I definitely try to keep it fresh, but I do fall into those patterns of like the things that I'm used to creating and the things that like I know I can do pretty well. Yeah. But yeah, that's something that I struggle with. And also too, just like the videos that are like extra creative, this is so lazy of me, but like if I'm doing a video where I'm doing, outfits inspired by the Aristocats, for example, that's something that like ends up being...
Which my 11-year-old daughter absolutely loves those.
Yes, they're fun, right? I love them too, but they always create such a mess, like, because I just have clothes everywhere and ears everywhere. Sure. And so, like, those are the videos that I absolutely love creating, but I definitely have to, like, take the time to create them because they definitely do take a lot of work. But I agree, they're my favorites as well. They're just so unique and, like, everybody does them so differently, which I think is really fun.
So how much emphasis do you put on the visual aspect of your content?
When I post a new picture, I love like looking at my feed and making sure it all looks very cohesive. Yeah. I use like the same filter on all my pictures just because I want it to be like very put together and like, I don't know the word, just like that it all flows, I guess, when you look at my page. Yeah. So I'm definitely a visual. There's been times where I've taken photos and they just do not, like the lighting just does not look good. And I just I just can't post them, sadly. So I'll usually post them on my story just so like people can see the content. But I'm definitely very strict about how my feed looks when I'm on my page.
So I guess just quality-wise, would you say there's a big gap between that early content you produced versus what you're producing today?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, when I first started posting on Instagram, it was like, I just picked whatever filter I thought looked good on that picture. I just kind of like stuck it up there. I didn't really care. And also, just like the quality of iPhones and stuff has gone up so much. So that's helped a lot. But there's definitely times where, last year I used to bring my vlogging camera every time I went to the park so I could take pictures with my camera. And I think those pictures definitely come out a little bit better. Whereas now, like, I just don't carry the camera with me. So I just go with the old iPhone. But
Yeah.
I think that's still like my editing skills have gotten better. But, there's always that voice in the back of your head that's like, oh, these pictures just like don't look as good as I want them to. But it's always those pictures that I think, like, okay, this could be edited better. They always end up doing well. So I just have to like let those thoughts go away sometimes.
So talk a little bit more about your engagement strategy. From what you've described so far, it seems more organic than really structured. Is that right?
I would say it's more organic. I definitely try to respond to all my comments. DMs are my priority because some people reach out with, like personal things that they need to talk to you about. So I want to make sure that I'm there for those people if they need that. But definitely comments, I try to get to as many as I can, but sometimes I just like life gets in the way, and I do not get to all of them, unfortunately. But I definitely try my best. And then, like, my strategy is kind of like if people comment on my post, I definitely want to pour into them as well. So usually if somebody comments on my picture, I will go to their page and, like some pictures that they posted or leave a comment on their post as well, just because if they took the time to comment on my stuff, I want to make sure that I'm also taking the time to boost their content as well.
Do you ever encounter criticism regarding the content you produce? And if you do, does it affect what you produce?
Oh, that's a good question. I definitely have. I mean, there's been like, there's always going to be the Disney adult criticism for sure, which that one is kind of fun for me because then I can kind of use those comments and make funny videos out of them. So I actually enjoy like as far as that goes. But there's definitely, I've made mistakes as far as like using sounds that people don't like for whatever reason. And I definitely like appreciate the feedback. If I ever posted something offensive or, something that just doesn't come across the right way to people, then that's something I definitely would want to take down and, go in a different direction for. I'm always open to hearing that because like I've been on the other side of the screen where, a post that I saw made me not feel very good. And, I just want to reach out to that person and be like, hey, just so you know, this doesn't come across very well. So I always am open to hearing that if I ever post something like that. But yeah, I think most of the criticism comes just from being a Disney adult when it lands on somebody else's page.
Yeah.
Actually, interesting story. Last year, I had a video go very viral on Instagram, which has never happened before. It went viral on Instagram and YouTube and went absolutely crazy. And it was basically a video about my Disney cast member story, where basically I was talking about how my first location that I was at, which was the Plaza Ice Cream Parlor on Main Street, was not my favorite. And then I kind of mentioned that, like, recently I had been working at the Coral Reef restaurant Epcot, and I was kind of saying that I was much happier. My management was much better. And, that video got a lot of criticism, crazily enough, because people thought that I was basically saying that, like, my end goal was to be a waitress, and people were just not happy about that. I got so many hate comments on those videos.
Okay.
And I actually had to turn off. Yeah.
Yeah. As you were telling that story, I was thinking, where could this possibly be going?
Right.
That would be
Oh,
negative.
yeah.
Yeah.
I could not believe it. I was so shocked because, if people, this is where, okay, this is just a little side tangent, but, waitress is a totally awesome job. Bartending is a totally awesome job, and we need people to do those jobs. So if people love them, I don't understand like why people would be rude about that. You know what I mean? But the biggest thing that stuck out to me was that, that wasn't my end goal. And my end goal was to do something creative. And at the time where I posted that video, I had been applying to other jobs and people just didn't know that about me. So it's like, they only get this 10 to 30-second video online and that's all that they'd perceive of me. So whenever I get criticism like that, I just have to take it with a grain of salt because I know they don't really know me. They're just getting this little snippet. And
it's back to the snapshot problem, right?
Yes, exactly. So that was probably the worst criticism I've ever received, which was just so silly to me.
Absolutely. So I guess in a more positive direction, what's your most popular content?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm trying to think. I feel like, so I've always told people like, when it comes to TikTok and Reels, there's always the popular sounds that are trending. And I always try to tell people that, there's the easy way to do things, which is, I'm trying to think of an example, but like, I'm trying to think of sounds that are trending recently, but there's the easy way to do things where it's just to mention like Disney as a whole, for example, like any sound that's like, I'm trying to think of ones I can't.
I know what you mean. Just the low hanging fruit, basically.
Yes, exactly. Like just saying like, oh, I'm going to Disney or, just like a broad thing. And I always try to tell people to, when those sounds are trending, definitely use them, but to really hone in on something. And I feel like that's the content people love is when I'm very specific about things. Like, for example, like bringing up a ride, like, I think a lot of people know from my page, I don't like Mission Space. So I can use Mission Space in some of my content. Really like digging in and using something specific or talking about a specific snack. Like I don't say, a Mickey snack. I say a Mickey pretzel with cheese. Like I really like to be very specific because I think people really gravitate towards that. There's a video I did a couple months ago with it was this old cast member video, a man named Andy who like talks about staying in your green zone and like not doing your red zone, when you're working. And that video took off because people, I think, really gravitate towards the things that they're familiar with and that they think nobody else like remembers.
It's those shared experiences that you don't really know are shared experiences.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think those definitely do the best when, I'm very specific and talk about something specific because then people feel like camaraderie with me in those instances.
Yeah, that makes sense. So let's go behind the scenes for a second. What are your favorite tools to use for producing content?
Ooh, so I always use Visco for my photos. Okay. So nice, cheap, easy tool to use.
Makes a note. I've been using Snapseed.
Oh, I do love Snapseed as well.
Okay.
Their brush tool where you can like edit exposure for like one part of the picture. That's really nice. But I've always gravitated towards Visco. And I also had one, it was called Real Bokeh, which had like Mickey heads in it, which I really loved, but I haven't used that in a while. As far as TikTok goes, and my reels, I really just edit them in the TikTok app or CapCut. Those are the two that I use.
Okay.
And then for YouTube, I did pull the plunge a couple years ago when I bought Final Cut, and it was a game changer. So I love Final Cut, but for a long, long time, I had used iMovie, and it worked perfectly well as well.
Yeah, it's a big jump up to Final Cut.
Yes,
that's cool. So. Do you do any kind of Little Miss Maris promotion outside of your channels?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, not really. Okay. I used to post on Facebook and, some of my family and friends would follow as well. And then my mom and my stepmom are like my biggest fans and they definitely share all my stuff and tell all their friends. So I definitely have some word of mouth going out, but that's pretty much it as far as like promoting my channel outside of the actual socials go. I definitely do some like cross back and forth, like on Instagram being like, hey, here's my new YouTube video, but I don't really talk about it too much because like at work, like I don't know, like everybody knows it exists, but it is still kind of like awkward because some of my videos, like I sing and like, it's a little bit more personal. So
understand.
I'm like, hopefully they don't see those videos, hopefully they see not the embarrassing ones.
So can you talk a little bit more about how you determine what content is appropriate for a specific platform? And if you take kind of a synergistic approach, to what you produce, or do you truly produce unique content for each platform?
Yeah. When I was posting more consistently, it definitely was like, I was posting every day, and my TikToks I definitely reused as reels and shorts. But I always wanted there to be something specific on each of my platforms where it would encourage people to follow me on all three, because I didn't want to post the same content on all the different platforms. I wanted there to be a reason to follow me on Instagram and TikTok.
Okay.
Yeah. So even though I did reuse my TikToks, TikTok, I would do lives. Instagram is where I share my pictures. And then YouTube is where I have my, full video format. And those are the only places you can find those things.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So I guess to wrap up, when someone engages with your brand, Little Miss Maris, what do you want them to come away from that experience with?
I honestly just hope that my content brings a smile to their face. And that's in moments where I don't want to create anymore, or in moments where I'm just feeling down about my content. Those are definitely the things I look back on, are people who reached out to me and told me that, I was in a dark place and your content inspired me, or it really brought a smile to my face. It kind of took me away from my problems for a little bit. That's honestly the biggest hope that I could possibly have, is just to pour into people and be a light for people. And hopefully they see that when they come to my page.
Absolutely. Okay, last question. For someone just starting this journey toward building a brand in the theme park community, what advice do you have for them?
Oh, I love that. Definitely don't listen to the naysayers. Yes, there's a lot of theme park creators, but you can go as big as you want. It doesn't matter how many people there are on this platform. There are so many opportunities for new creators to come up and join the club, I guess is the right word. But I definitely would say be yourself, be true to yourself, and don't look at what everybody else is doing that's taking off, but definitely just hone in on the things that make you special and make you unique. And those are the things that I think people will really gravitate to.
Listeners, we want you to be part of this podcast too. If you have any questions about building a brand in the theme park community, send them to me, and I'll try to include them in the next podcast. You can reach me at NextStopAaron on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Also, be sure to check out my travel blog at nextstopaaron.com. So a huge thank you to Marissa for coming on the podcast today. Really appreciated what she said about how important it is to engage with people that engage with you, and that builds that relationship. And also combining that with just being you, being unique, and letting that be what drives the growth of your brand. I hope you've enjoyed the episodes we've released so far. We've got a lot more great guests scheduled to be with us, and a lot more information just to pass along to you about building your brand in the theme park community. So hope you'll stay tuned. See you soon.